The maid's daughter heard guards speaking Arabic and warned the billionaire, "Don't enter that meeting." He laughed at the warning, but when he discovered the truth, his life changed forever. Just before the story starts, wherever you are on your journey, consider this your sign to keep going. The fluorescent lights of Blackwood Tower hummed their lonely song at 11:47 p.m., casting harsh shadows across the polished marble floors of the 63rd story. Maya Rodriguez pressed her small frame against the wall outside Conference Room B, her heart thundering so loudly she feared the men inside might hear it. Her worn sneakers, 2 sizes too big, inherited from a church donation, were silent against the cold floor, but her breath came in short, terrified gasps. Inside that room, 3 men spoke in rapid Arabic, their voices low and urgent. Maya's tiny hands trembled as she clutched her mother's spare cleaning rag, the rough fabric her only anchor to reality. She understood every word they said. Every single word. "The device is set," the first man said in Arabic, his voice thick with a Syrian accent Maya recognized from the international news broadcasts she'd absorbed during countless nights in this building. "When Blackwood enters for the morning meeting, he won't leave alive. The explosion will look like an electrical fire." Maya's brown eyes, too large for her thin face, made even larger by the purple circles underneath from too many late nights in these offices, widened in horror. She knew exactly who they meant. Alexander Blackwood, the man whose face appeared on every magazine cover in the lobby, the man whose portrait hung in the main entrance, the man who owned this building and the company, and probably half of Manhattan, the man who would die tomorrow morning if she didn't do something. "Are you certain the janitor won't find it?" a second voice asked, this one with a Lebanese accent that reminded Maya of Mrs. Aisha from the halal grocery 3 blocks from their apartment. "The cleaning woman?" The first man laughed, a sound that made Maya's stomach turn. "The Rodriguez woman? She's an idiot. Barely speaks English. She'll never notice the modifications to the electrical panel. None of these American pigs pay attention to the help." Maya's jaw clenched. Her mother, Elena Rodriguez, was many things. Uneducated, yes. Poor, absolutely. But stupid? Never. Her mother worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over their heads and food on their table. Her mother's hands were raw and cracked from cleaning solutions, her back bent from hours of scrubbing, her spirit never broken despite everything life had thrown at them. "Allahu Akbar," the third man whispered. "Tomorrow justice comes to those who exploit our homelands." The chair scraped, footsteps approached the door. Maya's eyes darted down the hallway, 30 feet to the service elevator, her only escape. But her legs wouldn't move. Fear had transformed her muscles into concrete, rooting her to this spot where she would surely be discovered. The door handle turned. "Maya, ¿dónde estás?" Her mother's voice echoed from the far end of the corridor, speaking Spanish, their home language, the language of late-night prayers and whispered lullabies. The door stopped opening. The footsteps inside paused. "There's someone out there," one man hissed in Arabic. "Just the cleaning woman calling for her brat," another replied. "Let's go. We're done here anyway." Maya's feet finally obeyed her screaming brain. She ran, her 2 large sneakers slapping softly against the marble as she raced toward her mother's voice. Behind her, she heard the door open fully, heard the men's footsteps heading toward the opposite elevator bank, heard her own pulse pounding in her ears like a war drum. "Mija, what are you doing all the way down here?" Elena Rodriguez emerged from the executive break room, her cleaning cart trailing behind her like a faithful companion. At 32, she looked a decade older. Poverty and hard labor aged a person faster than any calendar could track. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight bun, strands of gray beginning to show at her temples. She wore the navy blue uniform of the building's cleaning service, the fabric worn thin at the elbows and knees. Maya crashed into her mother's arms, burying her face in the chemical smell of the uniform. Bleach, ammonia, lemon-scented polish, and underneath it all, the faint scent of her mother's lavender soap, the one small luxury she allowed herself. "Mama," Maya whispered, her voice muffled against her mother's stomach. "Something bad. I heard something bad." Elena's arms tightened around her daughter. "¿Qué pasó, mi amor? What did you hear?" But before Maya could answer, the service elevator dinged, and the 3 men stepped out into the hallway. They were well dressed in dark suits, security badges clipped to their lapels, looking like any other corporate employees working late. But Maya knew better. She recognized them now. Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid. They worked in building security, their names stitched on their uniform shirts when they wore them during day shifts. Mrs. Rodriguez, Hassan called out in heavily accented English, his voice friendly, his smile not reaching his eyes. Working late tonight? Elena straightened, keeping Maya close. Yes, sir. Every night. Always the same. And your daughter? She should be in bed, no? Hassan's eyes fixed on Maya, and something in that gaze made the child's blood run cold. She has nowhere to go, Elena replied, her voice quiet but steady. I cannot leave her alone. You understand? Hassan nodded slowly, then said something to his companions in Arabic. Casual, dismissive words about the building allowing children in after hours. But Maya heard the undertone, the way his voice dropped when he added, The child was outside conference room B. Do you think she heard? She doesn't speak Arabic. Tariq replied in the same language, his tone unconcerned. Look at her. Just another poor American kid who'll never amount to anything. Let's go. They walked past, their expensive shoes clicking against the marble, their conversation continuing in Arabic as they headed toward the main elevator bank. Maya felt their eyes on her one last time before they turned the corner and disappeared. Mama, Maya whispered again, this time in Arabic, the words flowing as naturally as her native Spanish. Those men are going to kill someone. Tomorrow morning. An explosion. We have to warn him. Elena's body went rigid. She stared down at her daughter, her face pale. Maya, when did you learn Arabic? It wasn't the first time this conversation had happened. Over the past 3 years, Elena had discovered her daughter speaking in Japanese with the executives from the Tokyo branch, then Mandarin with the Chinese investors, French with the Paris team, German with the Frankfurt analysts, Portuguese with the Brazilian consultants, Italian, Russian, Korean, Hindi, Greek, Dutch, and now Arabic, 12 languages. Her 7-year-old daughter spoke 12 languages fluently. I listen, Mama, Maya said, switching back to Spanish. When we're here at night, I listen to them talk. I watch their presentations on the screens you clean. I read the documents they leave on the tables. Languages are just patterns, like music. Once you understand the pattern, the rest is easy. Elena sank down onto the floor, her cleaning cart forgotten. She pulled Maya into her lap as if the child was still a toddler, not the impossibly brilliant 7-year-old she'd become. Mi pequeña genio, she murmured, tears streaming down her weathered face. My little genius. What am I going to do with you? Right now? We need to warn Mr. Blackwood, Maya said, her voice small but determined. Those men put something in conference room B. They said it would look like an electrical fire when he comes for his morning meeting. We have to tell him. Elena's arms tightened around her daughter. Mija, we can't. You don't understand. If we go to Mr. Blackwood, if we tell him what you heard, we have to explain how you understood. And if people find out what you can do. She trailed off, but Maya knew what her mother feared. They would take her away. Rich people, scientists, government officials. They would come and take Maya away for tests, for studies, to turn her gift into something they could use. Elena had already lost Maya's father to the dangerous streets of their neighborhood. She couldn't lose her daughter too. But Mama, he'll die, Maya protested. Mr. Blackwood will die if we don't tell him. And we'll be homeless if we do tell him and those men find out it was us, Elena replied, her voice breaking. Mija, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But we can't afford to be heroes. We can barely afford to survive. Maya felt hot tears streaming down her own face now. She was 7 years old, and she held a man's life in her small hands, and no choice felt right. If she said nothing, Mr. Blackwood would die. If she spoke up, she and her mother might lose everything they had, which wasn't much, but it was theirs. Let's finish our work, Elena said softly, standing and setting Maya on her feet. We'll think about what to do. Maybe we can call in an anonymous tip to the police, say there's something suspicious. But as they moved through the building that night, finishing the cleaning rounds that would earn Elena her meager paycheck, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the morning meeting, about the device hidden in conference room B, about Hassan's cold smile and the casual cruelty in his voice when he'd called her mother stupid. At 3:47 a.m., as Elena scrubbed the floors of the executive suite on the 71st story, Maya made her decision. She slipped away from her mother's side, her two large sneakers silent on the plush carpet that covered the floors up here, so different from the marble of the lower levels, as if even the building itself acknowledged the hierarchy of its inhabitants. The CEO's office door was locked, but the reception area outside it wasn't. Maya had watched her mother clean this space 100 times. She knew where the security cameras were. Disabled after midnight to save on monitoring costs, the building management never expected trouble from the cleaning crew. She knew which desk belonged to Mr. Blackwood's personal assistant. She knew where the emergency contact list was kept. With shaking hands, Maya pulled out a piece of the expensive letterhead stationery from the assistant's drawer. She found a pen, a heavy, expensive thing that probably cost more than her mother earned in a week. And in careful, deliberate English, she wrote, "Mr. Blackwood, there is a device in conference room B. 3 security guards, Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid, placed it there. They plan to kill you during your morning meeting. They spoke in Arabic and didn't know I understood. Please check the electrical panel. Please be careful. Please don't let them know who warned you. My mother will lose her job and we have nowhere else to go. I'm sorry I can't tell you who I am. I just didn't want you to die." She placed the note in the center of the assistant's desk, weighted down with a crystal paperweight shaped like a globe. How fitting, Maya thought, for a man who controlled so much of the world from this office. Then she ran back to her mother, her heart pounding, her mind racing with fear and hope and the terrible knowledge that she'd just changed everything. Elena finished their shift at 5:30 a.m. as always. They took the service elevator down to the ground floor as always. They exited through the delivery entrance as always. They walked 3 blocks to the bus stop as always. They rode the bus back to their tiny apartment in Queens as always. But nothing would ever be the same. As the sun rose over New York City, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Maya pressed her face against the dirty bus window and thought about the man who would walk into his office in a few hours. Would he find the note? Would he believe a child's warning? Would he check the electrical panel, or would he dismiss it as a prank? Would Alexander Blackwood live to see another sunset? "You left him a message, didn't you?" Elena asked softly, her voice barely audible over the rumble of the bus engine. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she pressed a kiss to the top of her daughter's head. "Mi valiente," she whispered. "My brave girl, whatever happens next, remember, you tried to save a life. That matters. That matters more than anything." At 8:47 a.m., as Maya and Elena slept the exhausted sleep of night workers, Alexander Blackwood stepped off his private elevator onto the 71st floor of Blackwood Tower. His assistant, Margaret Chen, met him at the door with his morning coffee and schedule just like every day. "There was a note," Margaret said, her voice uncertain. "On my desk. It was there when I arrived. Someone must have come in after the cleaning crew left." "A note?" Alexander took it, his eyes scanning the childish handwriting, his expression shifting from casual interest to sharp focus to cold fury. "Call security, now, and get me the head of building security in my office in 5 minutes. Actually, no, don't call anyone yet. Come with me." Together they went to conference room B. The door was unlocked. No one had any reason to suspect anything wrong. Alexander approached the electrical panel that controlled the room's systems, his hands steady despite the warning racing through his mind. He opened the panel. Inside, nestled among the legitimate wiring, was a device about the size of a smartphone, connected to the electrical system with expert precision. A timer on its face showed 09:15 Obwer. In exactly 28 minutes it would detonate. "Oh my God," Margaret breathed. Someone really. "Get building security up here," Alexander said, his voice deadly calm. "And call the bomb squad now, and Margaret, I want surveillance footage from every floor last night, every camera, and I want to know who has access to this room after hours. Everyone. Don't leave anyone out." As Margaret raced to follow his orders, Alexander looked down at the note again. The handwriting of a child. The vocabulary of someone far more educated than the writing suggested. The desperate plea at the end about a mother losing her job. Someone had saved his life. Someone small, scared, and impossibly brave. Someone who understood Arabic and knew who Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid were. Someone who had been in this building last night with access to his office. Someone he intended to find. But as he stood in that conference room, waiting for the bomb squad, looking at the device that would have killed him and probably everyone in the morning meeting, Alexander Blackwood made himself a promise. Whoever had saved his life would be protected. If this mysterious guardian angel feared losing their job, losing their home, then by God he would make sure that never happened. He would find them. He would thank them. And he would change their life the way they'd just changed his. He just had to figure out who they were. And in a building with over 3,000 employees, where could he possibly start? The answer, of course, was in the words, "My mother will lose her job," not "I will lose my job." A child of an employee, a child who had been in the building after hours, who spoke Arabic, who had enough courage to leave this warning despite their fear. Alexander's mind spun through the possibilities, his genius for strategy and analysis. The same brilliance that had built his empire, now focused on a single question. Who was the child who had saved his life? And why, in a building full of cameras and security, had no one ever noticed a genius walking among them? Maya woke to the sound of sirens. They weren't close, maybe 10 blocks away, but in their cramped Queens apartment where traffic noise and emergency vehicles formed the constant soundtrack of their lives, she'd learned to distinguish between ordinary chaos and something different. These sirens had purpose. These sirens were racing toward Manhattan. "Mama?" Maya whispered into the dim afternoon light filtering through their thin curtains. They slept during the day, their circadian rhythms permanently inverted by Elena's night shift schedule. Elena was already awake, sitting at their tiny kitchen table with her phone in hand, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. When she looked up at Maya, her eyes were red-rimmed. Whether from exhaustion or tears, Maya couldn't tell. "Mija, come here," Elena said softly, patting the chair beside her. Maya climbed onto the wobbly chair, her bare feet dangling several inches above the worn linoleum floor. On Elena's phone screen, a breaking news alert flashed. Bomb threat at Blackwood Tower. 3 security guards arrested. CEO safe. "They found it," Maya breathed, her small hand clutching her mother's arm. "He read my note. He's okay." "Yes," Elena replied, her voice thick with emotion. "And now 3 men are in police custody, and the entire building is being evacuated and searched. Maya, do you understand what you did? You saved not just Mr. Blackwood, but everyone who would have been in that meeting. The article says 12 executives were scheduled to be there." Maya stared at the screen, watching the footage of police cars surrounding the gleaming tower, of people streaming out onto the street, of Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid being led away in handcuffs. She had done that. Her words, her warning, had changed everything. "But Mama, what if they find out it was me?" Maya's voice trembled. "What if Mr. Blackwood tells everyone? What if those men have friends?" Elena pulled her daughter close, pressing her lips to Maya's forehead. "That's why we're going to be very, very careful. When we go to work tonight, if they even let us in with all the police, you say nothing. You heard nothing. You saw nothing. Understand?" Maya nodded against her mother's shoulder, but her mind was already racing ahead, considering possibilities and consequences with the same analytical precision she applied to learning languages. If Alexander Blackwood was as intelligent as the business magazine suggested, he would investigate. He would review security footage. He would interview staff. Eventually, his search would narrow to the people who had access to his floor after hours. The cleaning crew. At Blackwood Tower, Alexander stood in his office surrounded by FBI agents, NYPD detectives, and his own security team. The bomb had been successfully dismantled. Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid were being interrogated downtown. The building was being swept floor by floor for any additional devices. And Alexander held the note that had saved his life, now sealed in a plastic evidence bag. "Mr. Blackwood, we need to discuss who might have left this," FBI Special Agent Diana Foster said, her sharp eyes fixed on him with the intensity of someone who'd built a career on reading people. The handwriting analysis suggests a child between 7 and 9 years old. The vocabulary and sentence structure indicate education beyond what the handwriting would suggest. And most critically, this child speaks Arabic well enough to understand detailed conversation, which narrows it down considerably, Alexander replied, pacing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the entire city. How many employees have children who would have been in this building last night? His head of security, James Morrison, a man Alexander had personally hired away from the Secret Service 5 years ago, pulled up a tablet. We're cross-referencing employee records now, but sir, there's something you should know. The note was placed on Margaret's desk sometime between 3:30 and 5:30 a.m. That's when the cleaning crew works on the executive floors. The cleaning crew, Alexander repeated, his mind sharpening on this detail. How many people? 15 staff members rotate through this building on the night shift, James replied. All employed through Clean Pro Services, a contractor we've used for 6 years. Background checks, references, the works. But sir, he hesitated. But what? Some of them bring their children. The company looks the other way because these are single mothers, mostly immigrants, who can't afford childcare. It's technically against building policy, but enforcement has been lax. Alexander felt something twist in his chest. Anger at himself, at his company, at a system that forced mothers to bring their children to work in the middle of the night because they had no other choice. He'd built an empire on efficiency and profit margins, never thinking about the invisible people who kept his building running while he slept in his penthouse apartment. I want the names of every cleaning crew member who's been observed with a child in this building, Alexander said, his voice quiet but firm. And James? Those women are not in trouble, do you understand? Whoever left this note saved my life. If someone broke a policy to do it, I don't care. In fact, change the policy. Effective immediately, cleaning crew members are permitted to bring their children if they have no other childcare option. We'll set up a room where kids can sleep safely while their parents work. Agent Foster raised an eyebrow. That's very generous, Mr. Blackwood, but we still need to interview everyone who had access to. You'll interview them respectfully. Alexander interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. These are hard-working people, many of whom are supporting entire families on minimum wage. The person who saved my life was terrified of losing their job. I won't reward their courage by making their life harder. With all due respect, sir, Agent Foster replied coolly. 3 men just tried to assassinate you. This child witnessed them planting a bomb. Those men have been part of a terrorist cell operating in New York for at least 2 years, according to preliminary interrogation. This child and their family are potential witnesses and potential targets. We need to find them to protect them. The room went silent. Alexander turned from the window, his expression grim. He hadn't considered that. In his focus on gratitude and protection, he'd missed the darker implication. Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid knew someone had heard them. They'd seen Maya and Elena in the hallway. They might not have realized the child understood Arabic, but they were smart enough to put pieces together once they learned about the note. Then we find them first, Alexander said, before anyone else does. James, I want that list in an hour. Agent Foster, I'll cooperate fully, but I'm hiring private security for every member of the night cleaning crew until we know these people are safe. No arguments. Maya and Elena arrived at Blackwood Tower at 9:47 p.m. to find chaos. Police barriers still surrounded the building. Security checkpoints had been established at every entrance. News vans lined the street, reporters shouting questions at anyone who entered or exited. Senora Rodriguez, the night shift supervisor, a tired-looking man named Carl Henderson, waved them through the delivery entrance. Thank God you're here. Half the crew called in sick, they're scared after what happened. We've got 70 floors to clean and 6 people to do it. We'll do our best, Mr. Henderson, Elena replied in her carefully practiced English, keeping her eyes down, her voice soft. This was how she survived, by being invisible, unremarkable, forgettable. But tonight, Maya noticed the security guard at the entrance watching them with unusual attention. She noticed the new cameras being installed. She noticed the FBI agents in the lobby, showing photos to the remaining night staff. Mama, they're looking for us, Maya whispered in Spanish as they pushed the cleaning cart toward the service elevator. They're looking for whoever left the note, Elena corrected, her voice barely audible. They don't know it's us. They can't know. Just act normal, mija, like every other night. But nothing was normal. As they cleaned the 43rd floor, accounting and finance, 2 FBI agents approached them. Agent Foster and a younger man who introduced himself as Agent Chen. Mrs. Rodriguez? Agent Foster's voice was professional but not unkind. We're interviewing all staff members who were working last night. Do you have a few minutes? Elena's hand tightened on her mop handle. Yes, ma'am, of course. Were you working on the executive floors last night? Specifically the 71st floor? Yes, ma'am, I clean executive floors every night. Monday through Friday, same schedule for 4 years. And did you see anything unusual? Anyone who shouldn't have been in the building? Maya watched her mother's face, saw the careful blankness she'd perfected over years of making herself invisible to people who held power over her life. No, ma'am, just the regular security guards. They sometimes work late. Did you bring your daughter with you last night? Agent Foster's eyes shifted to Maya, who stood partially hidden behind the cleaning cart, trying to make herself as small as possible. Yes, ma'am, always. I have no one to watch her. I'm sorry if this is against the rules, but it's not against the rules anymore, Agent Chen interjected, offering a small smile. Mr. Blackwood changed the policy today. Children are welcome. Elena blinked, surprise breaking through her careful mask. He changed the policy? He did, Agent Foster confirmed. Mrs. Rodriguez, your daughter, does she attend school? Maya felt her mother's fear spike. Education was complicated when you worked nights and slept days, when your apartment was in a different district than the one where you pretended to live for school registration, when missing even one day of work could mean not making rent. She's homeschooled, Elena said quickly. It was technically true. Maya learned everything from the books Elena borrowed from the library, from the conversations she overheard in the building, from the internet access at the public library. I teach her when we wake up, before work. Agent Foster pulled out a small notebook. Does your daughter speak any languages besides English and Spanish? The question hung in the air like a blade. Maya could feel her heart hammering against her ribs. This was it. This was where everything would unravel. Just those two, ma'am, Elena replied, her voice steady despite the lie. I'm sorry, is there something wrong? Are we in trouble? No, no trouble at all, Agent Foster assured her. We're just being thorough. If you remember anything unusual from last night, please let security know. And Mrs. Rodriguez, thank you for your cooperation. The agents moved on to interview the next staff member. Elena and Maya stood frozen for a long moment before Elena's shaking hands resumed mopping the floor. That was close, Maya whispered in Spanish. Too close, Elena agreed. Mija, from now on, you stay quiet. Don't let anyone hear you speak anything but Spanish and English. Don't let anyone notice you. Can you do that? Maya nodded, but her mind was troubled. Agent Foster had asked specifically about languages. They were looking for a child who understood Arabic. They were connecting pieces, drawing a net that would eventually catch her. And more troubling, if the FBI had figured out this much, how long before Hassan's associates did the same? On the 71st floor, Alexander sat in his office long after the FBI had left, studying the personnel files James had compiled. 15 cleaning crew members. 7 of them were single mothers. 4 brought their children to work regularly. One name stood out, Elena Rodriguez. Single mother. 1 daughter, age 7. Employed for 4 years, perfect attendance, no complaints, no incidents. Her supervisor's notes described her as quiet, hardworking, keeps to herself. The building's security footage from last night had been reviewed frame by frame. At 3:49 a.m., a camera had captured a small figure darting through the executive reception area, too quick to identify clearly, but the timestamp matched perfectly with when the note must have been placed. At 11:52 p.m., corridor camera C63 had recorded 3 men, Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid, leaving conference room B. 30 seconds later, the same camera showed a small girl pressed against the wall, barely visible in the frame. And then Elena Rodriguez, pushing her cleaning cart, calling out in Spanish. The girl's face had been mostly hidden, but Alexander had ordered his technical team to enhance every frame. What they'd found made his breath catch. Large, intelligent eyes, a face too thin, suggesting not enough food, shoes at least 2 sizes too big, and an expression, caught for just one frame, of pure, crystallized terror. This child had heard men planning murder. This child had understood a language she shouldn't speak. This child had been brave enough to warn him despite her fear. And this child was back in his building tonight pretending everything was normal. Alexander picked up his phone and called James. "I know who left the note. Elena Rodriguez's daughter. I need everything you can find out about them. But discreetly. Don't approach them yet. I need to understand their situation before I do anything. Sir, the FBI will not be told until I'm certain these people are protected. James, 3 terrorists saw this child in the hallway last night. They may not have realized she understood Arabic, but they're smart enough to figure it out. I need private security on Elena Rodriguez and her daughter starting now. Plain clothes, invisible, but watching them every moment they're outside this building. Consider it done, sir." Alexander ended the call and returned to the grainy security footage, watching the small figure race through his reception area. So much courage in such a small package. So much intelligence hidden behind poverty and fear. He would find a way to thank this child without destroying her life. He would find a way to protect her without making her a target. He would find a way to repay the debt he owed to someone who'd asked for nothing in return, except anonymity. But first, he needed to understand why a 7-year-old girl spoke Arabic fluently enough to understand detailed conversations about terrorism. And something told him the answer to that question would change everything he thought he knew about intelligence, opportunity, and the invisible children living in the shadows of his empire. At 4:17 a.m., as Maya and Elena finished cleaning the executive dining room, Maya suddenly grabbed her mother's arm. "Mama, someone's watching us." Elena's eyes darted around the empty room. "What do you mean?" "There, by the window, a reflection." Maya pointed to the glass wall overlooking the city. In the reflection, barely visible, was the silhouette of a man standing in the darkened corridor behind them. Elena spun around, her mop raised like a weapon. The corridor was empty. "I saw him, Mama. I promise. He was there. Let's finish and get out of here," Elena whispered, her voice tight with fear. "Something doesn't feel right tonight." They worked quickly, efficiently, barely speaking. At 5:23 a.m., they finally headed for the service elevator. As the doors closed, Maya caught one last glimpse of the executive floor. Standing in the shadows near conference room B, barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness, was a figure. Watching, waiting. And Maya couldn't shake the terrible feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger than she could understand. The elevator descended into the early morning darkness, carrying mother and daughter back to their ordinary life, a life that, unknown to them, was about to become anything but ordinary. Above them in his office, Alexander Blackwood watched the security feed of them leaving. His hand hovered over his phone, the urge to call them back, to thank them, to offer them everything they deserved, nearly overwhelming. But Agent Foster's words echoed in his mind. This child and their family are potential witnesses and potential targets. So instead he called his head of security again. "James, I need that protection detail active immediately, and I need you to find out where Elena Rodriguez lives. I'm sending a security team to watch their home. If Hassan's people come looking for witnesses, I want to know about it before they get close." "Understood, sir." Alexander hung up and looked at the note one final time, reading the careful handwriting of a child who'd had to grow up too fast, who'd learned languages to help her struggling mother, who'd risked everything to save a stranger. "I'll keep you safe," he promised the empty office. "Whoever you are, wherever you are, I'll keep you safe. And then I'll find a way to give you the life you deserve." But in the darkness of the city, other forces were already moving. Hassan, Tariq, and Khalid might be in custody, but they weren't the only ones who knew about the failed bombing, and the people they answered to would want to know who had betrayed them. The hunt was on, and Maya Rodriguez, the 7-year-old genius who spoke 12 languages, had just become the most important target in New York City, whether she knew it or not. The man in the black sedan had been parked across from their apartment building for 3 days. Maya noticed him first, of course. She noticed everything, the way his newspaper never turned pages, how his eyes tracked every person entering or leaving their building, the slight bulge under his jacket that suggested a weapon. On Tuesday morning, she'd counted him checking his phone 17 times in 1 hour. On Wednesday, a different man in a different car had taken the morning shift, but the afternoon brought the first man back. Now it was Thursday, and Maya sat at their small kitchen window, her geography textbook open but ignored, watching the watcher. Mama, she called softly. Elena was sleeping after their shift, her snores soft and steady from the bedroom they shared. But Maya couldn't sleep. Fear had become her constant companion, a cold weight in her stomach that grew heavier each day. The newspaperman's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then started his car. Maya watched him drive away, relief flooding through her, until she noticed the woman in the coffee shop across the street. Designer sunglasses, expensive handbag. But she'd been nursing the same latte for over an hour, her attention never leaving their building's entrance. They were being watched. The question was, by whom? In his office at Blackwood Tower, Alexander reviewed the security report with growing concern. His private team had identified 6 different individuals conducting surveillance on Elena Rodriguez's apartment building over the past 72 hours. 2 were his own people, plainclothes security he'd hired to protect Maya and her mother. But the other 4 were unknowns, and that terrified him. We ran facial recognition on all 6, James explained, pulling up photographs on the large monitor. Your 2 are clean, obviously. But these 4? He highlighted the images. 2 came back as associates of a domestic terror cell with connections to Hassan's network. The other 2 are ghosts. No hits in any database, which suggests professional training. Foreign intelligence? Alexander asked sharply. Possibly. Or private contractors. Either way, they're not amateurs. James pulled up another screen showing a map with markers. We've also identified suspicious activity near her daughter's library, the Queen's Public Library on Roosevelt Avenue. Elena takes Maya there twice a week. Someone's been asking questions about a little girl who speaks multiple languages. Alexander's jaw clenched. How did they find her so fast? Hassan talked. Not officially, he's still refusing to cooperate with the FBI. But word got out that someone tipped you off, someone who understood Arabic. It doesn't take a genius to connect those dots, especially if you know the building's layout and staff schedules. I want round-the-clock protection, not just surveillance, actual bodyguards. I don't care what it costs. Sir, that might reveal that you know who they are. If Elena Rodriguez suddenly has bodyguards, everyone will wonder why. Alexander stood, pacing to the window. Below, the city sprawled in every direction. Millions of people living their lives unaware that in one small Queen's apartment, a child who'd saved his life was now in danger because of it. Then we do it discreetly. Put a team in the apartment building. Maintenance workers, delivery people, whatever cover works, and James? He turned back to his head of security. I need to meet her. Sir, with all due respect, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. If you meet with Elena Rodriguez, it confirms she's the one who warned you. Every intelligence agency, every news outlet, every person with an agenda will descend on that family. I don't care about me. Alexander's voice cracked with frustration. A 7-year-old child is being hunted because she saved my life. I need to know she's safe. I need to look her mother in the eye and promise them protection. He stopped, surprised by the intensity of his own emotion. James studied him for a long moment. This isn't just about gratitude, is it? No, Alexander admitted quietly. It's about the fact that this child apparently taught herself 12 languages to help her mother clean offices. It's about the fact that she was brave enough to warn me, even though she was terrified. It's about the fact that while I've been sitting in this tower making billions, there are people working in my building, keeping it running, who can barely afford to feed their children. And I never noticed. I never cared enough to notice. So what do you want to do? Alexander pulled out his phone and opened a secure messaging app. Set up a meeting. Tonight after their shift. Tell Elena Rodriguez that Alexander Blackwood would like to speak with her privately, and that she's not in any trouble. In fact, quite the opposite. Maya was reading a discarded Wall Street journal she'd found in the recycling bin, practicing her financial vocabulary, when her mother emerged from the bedroom at 4:30 p.m., her hair disheveled, her face creased from the pillow. Mija, we need to talk, Elena said, her voice thick with sleep and worry. Maya set down the newspaper. Is it about the people watching our building? Elena's eyes widened. You knew? I've been counting them. 6 different people over 3 days. The patterns suggest at least 2 different groups, possibly 3 depending on whether… Maya, stop. Elena sank into the chair across from her daughter, suddenly looking every one of her 32 years and then some. Sometimes I forget you're 7. The way you think, the way you see things. It's not normal. I know, Mama. I got a message today. From building security at Blackwood Tower, Mr. Blackwood wants to meet with us tonight. After our shift. Elena's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, showing Maya the text message. Maya read it carefully, her analytical mind dissecting every word choice, every implication. He knows it was me. That's why we're being watched. Some of those people are protecting us, not hunting us. How can you possibly know that? Because if they were all enemies, we'd already be dead, Maya said matter-of-factly. The man in the black sedan had multiple opportunities to approach us when we were vulnerable. He didn't. He's watching over us, not stalking us. Elena pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her tight. You shouldn't have to think about things like this. You should be playing with dolls, watching cartoons, being a normal 7-year-old. But I'm not normal, Mama, we both know that. Maya's voice was small, muffled against her mother's shoulder. And now my being different might get us killed. No, Elena said fiercely. Your being different saved lives. 12 people were supposed to be in that meeting. 12 families who still have their loved ones because of you. Don't ever regret that. They held each other in the fading afternoon light, mother and daughter, bound by love and fear and a gift that was simultaneously miraculous and dangerous. What do we tell Mr. Blackwood? Maya finally asked. The truth, Elena replied. What else can we tell him? The meeting was set for 2 a.m. in Alexander's private conference room, a time when the building would be nearly empty, when they could speak without dozens of eyes watching. Elena and Maya cleaned their usual floors first, maintaining the appearance of normalcy, while Maya's mind raced through scenarios and possibilities. At 1:57 a.m., James Morrison appeared beside their cleaning cart. He was a large man, former Secret Service, with kind eyes that didn't match his intimidating build. Mrs. Rodriguez? If you'll follow me, please. Elena's hand found Maya's, squeezing tight. Together they followed James through corridors Maya had cleaned 100 times but never walked through as a guest. The elevator took them to the 71st floor, to the executive level where power resided in corner offices and conference rooms. Alexander Blackwood stood when they entered, and Maya's first thought was that he looked different from his photographs. Younger, maybe, or perhaps just more human. The magazines showed a titan of industry, cold and calculating. The man before her had shadows under his eyes and worry lines creasing his forehead. Mrs. Rodriguez, Maya. He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. Please sit. Can I get you anything? Water, coffee? We're fine. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood, Elena replied in careful English, her posture stiff with anxiety. Alexander sat across from them, and for a moment, no one spoke. Maya studied him with the same intensity she applied to learning languages, reading his body language, his micro-expressions, the way his hands fidgeted with a pen, suggesting nervousness despite his powerful position. I know you left me the note, Alexander said finally, his voice gentle. I know you heard Hassan and his associates planning the bombing, and I know you speak Arabic along with, how many other languages? Maya's eyes darted to her mother, who nodded slightly. 12, Maya whispered. I speak 12 languages. Alexander leaned back, genuine wonder crossing his face. 12, at 7 years old. How is that even possible? I listen, Maya explained, her voice gaining strength. When Mama cleans the offices, I listen to the meetings, the phone calls, the presentations. I read the documents on the desks, the books on the shelves. Languages have patterns, grammatical structures, phonetic rules, vocabulary roots. Once you understand the pattern, the rest just clicks. Just clicks, Alexander repeated, a slight smile touching his lips. Maya, what you're describing, the ability to acquire languages that quickly, it's extraordinary. Most adults take years to become fluent in one foreign language. You've mastered 11 in what, 3 years? 3 years and 4 months, Maya corrected. I started with Japanese because the Tokyo executives came first, then Mandarin, because some Japanese words have Chinese roots, and it helped me understand the connections. Then, Mia, slow down, Elena interjected softly. But Alexander was leaning forward now, fully engaged. No, let her continue. Please, I want to understand. So Maya explained. She explained how she'd discovered that if she listened to a language for 40 to 60 hours, She could identify its basic patterns, how she'd taught herself to read by matching written documents to spoken conversations, how she'd realized that many languages shared roots, Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, and understanding those roots was like finding a key that unlocked multiple doors. French and Spanish and Italian are sisters, Maya said, her small hands gesturing as she warmed to her subject. Romanian too, though she's a distant cousin. They all come from Latin, so once I understood Spanish and learned Latin from the books in your legal department, French and Italian were easy. Portuguese was even easier because it's so close to Spanish, though Brazilian Portuguese has different sounds than European Portuguese, which I learned from your São Paulo team. Alexander stared at her, something like awe in his expression. And Arabic? That's not related to any Romance language. No, Arabic is Semitic, related to Hebrew. It's right to left, with a different alphabet, and the grammar is completely different from European languages. That one was harder. It took me 8 months instead of 6. She said this as if 8 months was a long time, as if most people could learn Arabic in half a year if they just tried a little harder. Maya, Alexander said slowly, do you understand that what you can do is impossible? That linguistic experts spend their entire careers studying language acquisition, and they've never documented anyone, child or adult, who can do what you're describing. Maya's face fell. Am I in trouble? No, not at all. Alexander's hand reached across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. You're remarkable. You're possibly the most linguistically gifted person alive. I'm just trying to understand how this happened. Poverty happened, Elena said quietly. She had no toys, no television, no computer, just books from the library and the sounds of this building at night. She learned languages because she had nothing else to occupy her mind. Because she wanted to help me understand what people said about us when they thought we couldn't understand them. The room fell silent. Alexander looked at Elena, really looked at her for the first time, saw the cracked hands from cleaning chemicals, the exhaustion carved into her face, the fierce love in her eyes when she looked at her daughter. Tell me what you need, Alexander said. Both of you. What can I do to help? Keep us safe, Elena replied immediately. Those people watching our apartment, I know some of them are yours, and thank you for that. But the others are looking for the witness, Alexander confirmed. Hassan's network wants to know who betrayed them. And unfortunately, now that Hassan's associates are making inquiries, it's only a matter of time before they narrow it down to you. Maya felt her mother's hand tighten around hers. So what do we do? I'm moving you, Alexander said. Tonight. There's a secure apartment building I own in Midtown. High security, doorman, cameras, the works. It's normally reserved for visiting executives, but I'm offering you a 2-bedroom unit, rent-free for as long as you need it. Mr. Blackwood, we can't, Elena started. You can, and you will. Alexander interrupted gently but firmly. Maya saved my life. She saved 12 lives. The least I can do is ensure she's safe. Beyond that. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Elena, your daughter is phenomenally gifted. With proper education, proper resources, she could achieve things we can't even imagine. Would you let me help with that too? Private tutors, language schools, whatever she needs? Maya watched her mother's face cycle through emotions, gratitude, pride, fear, and finally wariness. What do you want in return? Nothing, Alexander said. I'm not asking you to work for me or to put Maya on display, or to sign away any rights. I'm offering help because it's the right thing to do. Because I have resources you need, and you have a daughter whose potential shouldn't be limited by circumstances beyond her control. People will ask questions, Elena said, about where we live, about money, about why you're helping us. Let them ask. I'll tell them you're a valued employee who did me a tremendous service, which is the truth. Alexander pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Here's the address of the apartment, keys, security codes. There's also a credit card in your name for groceries, clothing, necessities. The limit is $50,000 a month. Elena's eyes went wide. 50,000, that's more than I make in 2 years. Then maybe it's time you made more, Alexander replied. I'm also offering you a new position. Facility management coordinator, day shift, office work, triple your current salary. You'd oversee quality control for the cleaning services across all my properties. No more night shifts, no more bringing Maya to work at midnight. Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. Why? Why are you doing all this? Alexander was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. I inherited the company, the money, everything. But I had uncles, aunts, trustees who made sure I got the best education money could buy. I went to private schools, Ivy League universities had every advantage. And I built all this. He gestured to the office around them, to the empire beyond. But here's what I realized this week. I'm not special. I'm not smarter than everyone else. I just had opportunities most people never get. Maya, she's teaching herself languages from overheard conversations and library books. Imagine what she could do with actual opportunities. With teachers, resources, safety. That's why I'm helping. Because talent like hers doesn't come along often, and it would be a crime to waste it. Maya felt something warm and unfamiliar spreading in her chest. Hope. Actual, real hope for a future beyond night shifts and 2 small apartments and constant worry. There's one more thing, Alexander added. The FBI wants to put you in witness protection. They think it's the safest option. But I convinced them to give us a week. Let me try my way first. If you feel unsafe at any point, we go with their plan. But I think with proper security, you can maintain some semblance of normal life. Or at least a better life than you have now. Elena looked at Maya, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Elena nodded. Okay, we'll try it your way. But Mr. Blackwood, if anything happens to my daughter because of this, because of helping you, nothing will happen to her, Alexander promised. I have a team of 12 former Secret Service agents rotating shifts. No one gets near her without going through them. You have my word. As James prepared to escort them to their new apartment, Maya turned back to Alexander. Mr. Blackwood, thank you. Not just for the apartment and the help, but for seeing me. Most people look at me and just see a poor kid who shouldn't be in their building. You saw something different. Alexander knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. Maya, I don't just see something different. I see someone extraordinary, and I promise you, I will do everything in my power to help you become whoever you're meant to be. And at 4:47 a.m., as Maya and Elena settled into their new apartment, a space 5 times larger than their old one with actual bedrooms and a kitchen that had appliances that worked, Alexander stood in his office and made a call. Senator Morrison? It's Alexander Blackwood. I need to call in that favor you owe me. Yes, the big one. I have a constituent who needs fast-tracked paperwork, citizenship applications, background checks, the works. Why? Because she's 7 years old, speaks 12 languages, and just saved my life. And I'll be damned if I let bureaucracy or terror cells or anyone else hurt her. So here's what you're going to do. By sunrise, wheels were in motion that would change Maya Rodriguez's life forever. Educational consultants were being contacted. Security protocols were being implemented. Legal protections were being filed. But in a dark corner of the city, in a basement room where men with dangerous ideals gathered, Hassan's brother received a phone call. A name. An address. A description of a small girl with brown eyes who'd been seen near Conference Room B. The hunt was intensifying, and no amount of money or security could guarantee safety when true evil came calling. Maya fell asleep in her new bed in her new room under her new protection, unaware that the most dangerous chapter of her story was just beginning. And in his penthouse apartment, Alexander Blackwood lay awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing he just made a promise he might not be able to keep. But he'd die trying. Because some debts could only be paid with everything you had. And Maya Rodriguez was worth everything. 3 weeks had passed since Maya and Elena moved into the Midtown apartment. And Maya's world had transformed so completely that sometimes she woke up wondering if it was all a dream. The apartment had bookshelves. Real bookshelves that Alexander had filled with language textbooks, literature in a dozen languages, and even a tablet loaded with educational software. Elena worked day shifts now, leaving for the office at 8 a.m. and returning by 6 p.m., her hands slowly healing from years of harsh chemicals. But the security detail remained constant. Marcus, a former Marine with a gentle smile, accompanied Maya everywhere. To the library, to the park, even to the corner store when she wanted to buy her mother flowers. At first, his presence had made Maya uncomfortable. a constant reminder of the danger lurking somewhere beyond her new safe haven. Now, he was simply part of her routine, like breakfast or homework. On this particular Tuesday morning, Maya sat in the apartment's small home office, a luxury she never dreamed she'd have, working through an advanced Arabic grammar text. Her tutor, Dr. Rashid Mansour, a linguistics professor from Columbia University whom Alexander had hired, watched her with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. "Maya, you just conjugated a verb form that graduate students struggle with," Dr. Mansour said in Arabic, shaking his head. "And you did it perfectly. How long did you study this chapter?" 20 minutes last night, Maya replied in the same language. "The pattern is similar to the subjunctive forms we covered last week, just with different pronoun suffixes." Dr. Mansour leaned back in his chair, studying her. He was a kind man in his 50s, originally from Egypt, with laugh lines around his eyes and infinite patience for his extraordinary student. "Maya, I've taught linguistics for 27 years. I've never encountered a mind like yours. The speed at which you process and internalize language structures is unprecedented." "Is that bad?" Maya asked, switching to English. "Bad? No, child, it's miraculous, but it raises questions. Have you ever been tested? Cognitive assessments, IQ tests, anything like that?" Maya shook her head. "We couldn't afford doctors unless I was really sick. And I didn't go to regular school, so no testing." "I'd like to recommend some assessments, Dr. Mansour said carefully. "With your mother's permission, of course. Not because anything's wrong, but because understanding how your brain works might help us teach you even more effectively." Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed. The new smartphone Alexander had given her, programmed with only trusted contacts. It was a text from Alexander himself. "Can you and your mom come to my office at 4 p.m.? I have someone I'd like you to meet." Maya showed the message to Dr. Mansour, who nodded. "We can finish early today. You've already mastered material that should have taken 3 months. We're ahead of schedule on everything." At 3:47 p.m., Maya and Elena arrived at Blackwood Tower. It felt strange entering through the main lobby as guests instead of the service entrance as employees. The security guard, a different one than worked nights, smiled and waved them through. "Mr. Blackwood is expecting you, 71st floor." In the elevator, Elena straightened Maya's collar nervously. In 3 weeks, she'd gained back some weight, her face less gaunt, though worry still lived in her eyes like a permanent resident. "Remember your manners, Mija. Mr. Blackwood is doing so much for us." "I know, Mama." Maya squeezed her mother's hand. Their relationship had shifted slightly since the move. Elena was still her mother, still protective, but now she also seemed a bit in awe of her daughter's gifts, treating her more like a small adult than a child. Maya wasn't sure how she felt about that. Alexander met them at the elevator, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt rather than his usual suit. "Elena, Maya, thank you for coming. There's someone I want you to meet." He led them to a conference room where a woman in her 60s sat reviewing documents. She had silver hair cut in a sharp bob, intelligent eyes behind designer glasses, and an air of authority that filled the room. "Dr. Catherine Wells," Alexander introduced her. "She's the director of the Institute for Advanced Cognitive Studies at MIT. Dr. Wells, this is Maya Rodriguez and her mother, Elena." Dr. Wells stood, extending her hand first to Elena, then kneeling down to Maya's level. "Hello, Maya. Alexander has told me extraordinary things about you. Would you mind if we talked for a bit?" Maya glanced at her mother, who nodded. "Okay." What followed was the strangest hour of Maya's life. Dr. Wells asked her questions in different languages: Japanese, French, Russian, Arabic, Mandarin, switching randomly to test her fluency. She presented puzzles, pattern recognition tests, memory exercises. She asked Maya to translate complex passages, to identify linguistic roots, to explain grammatical structures. Finally, Dr. Wells sat back, removing her glasses to rub her eyes. "Alexander, you understated the situation. This child isn't just gifted. I don't even have adequate terminology." She turned to Elena. "Mrs. Rodriguez, with your permission, I'd like to conduct a comprehensive cognitive assessment. It would take about 3 days, non-invasive, just tests and observations. I want to understand how Maya's brain processes language." "Why?" Elena asked, her protective instincts flaring. So you can write papers about her? Make her famous? Turn her into some kind of experiment? No, Dr. Wells said gently. So we can help her. Maya's abilities are unprecedented, but that also means we don't know what she needs to develop properly. Is her gift limited to languages, or does it extend to other areas? Does she process information differently than other children? Understanding these things will help us, and you, give her the best possible education and support. Elena looked at Alexander. What do you think? I think Dr. Wells is one of the most respected cognitive scientists in the world, Alexander replied. And I think she genuinely wants to help Maya, not exploit her. But it's your decision, both of you. Maya spoke up. I want to do it. I want to understand why I can do things other people can't. Maybe it will help me figure out what I'm supposed to do with all of this. Elena closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. Okay, but I stay with her the whole time. Of course, Dr. Wells agreed. Mrs. Rodriguez, I wouldn't dream of separating you. And that evening, as Maya and Elena returned to their apartment, neither noticed the man watching from across the street. He was different from Alexander's security team. Harder edges, colder eyes. He took a photo of them entering the building, then made a call. I've confirmed the location, he said in Arabic. The girl matches the description. Small, 7 years old, brown eyes. She's being protected, but not impossible to reach. On the other end of the line, Hassan's brother, Zamir, smiled. Good. Watch her routine. Find the vulnerable points. We're not going to kill her. Not yet. First, we're going to send a message. Let Blackwood know that no amount of money can protect the people who betray us. The cognitive testing began the next day at a private facility Dr. Wells had arranged. For 3 days, Maya underwent assessments that ranged from fascinating to exhausting. MRI scans showed her brain activity while processing different languages. Memory tests revealed she could recall conversations verbatim weeks after hearing them. Pattern recognition exercises demonstrated processing speeds far beyond normal parameters. On the 3rd day, as Maya completed a particularly challenging spatial reasoning test, Dr. Wells pulled Alexander aside in the observation room. Her IQ is off the scale, Dr. Wells said quietly. The standard tests cap at 160, but her performance suggests something significantly higher. But here's what's truly remarkable. Her brain shows unusual activity in the regions associated with both language processing and music. She's essentially treating languages like musical patterns, which explains the unprecedented acquisition speed. What does that mean for her future? Alexander asked. It means she could master virtually any language that exists. But more than that, the same cognitive abilities that allow her to process languages could apply to mathematics, code, even scientific concepts if properly nurtured. Alexander, this child could become whatever she wants to be. A diplomat, a scientist, a scholar. The limitation isn't her ability. It's opportunity and guidance. Then we'll provide both, Alexander said firmly. Dr. Wells turned to face him. There's something else. Maya is intellectually extraordinary, but emotionally she's still a 7-year-old who's been through trauma. The bombing threat, the surveillance, the upheaval in her life, she's handling it remarkably well, but we need to ensure she has psychological support too. A child psychologist, someone who can help her process all of this. I'll arrange it immediately. Through the observation window, they watched Maya complete the final test, her small face scrunched in concentration. She was wearing new clothes, jeans and a bright purple sweater that Elena had bought with tears of joy at being able to afford something new rather than thrifted. Her 2 large shoes had been replaced with properly fitting sneakers. Outwardly, she looked like any other well-cared-for child. But both adults knew the truth. Maya Rodriguez was unique, and that uniqueness made her both incredibly valuable and incredibly vulnerable. That night, as Maya slept peacefully in her new bedroom, Alexander received a call from James Morrison. Sir, we have a problem. One of our surveillance team spotted a new individual watching the apartment building. We ran his photo through databases. He's connected to Zamir Hassan, the brother of the terrorist we arrested. Alexander felt ice slide down his spine. Where is he now? We lost him. He spotted our team and disappeared into the subway. But sir, his presence means they've found Maya. Zamir knows where she lives. Double the security detail. I want someone inside the building in the hallway outside their apartment. And James? Call Agent Foster. It might be time to consider the FBI's witness protection offer after all. You think it's that serious? Alexander looked out at the city lights, thinking about a small girl who'd risked everything to save strangers. I think we're about to find out just how far these people will go for revenge. Only 2 days later, Maya stood in a Columbia University linguistics seminar, at Alexander's invitation and Dr. Mansour's suggestion, demonstrating her abilities to a room full of doctoral students and professors. She conversed in 12 languages, translated complex texts, explained grammatical structures. The academics watched in stunned silence. Afterward, a young graduate student approached Elena. "Your daughter is extraordinary," she said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "She's what every linguist dreams of becoming. You must be incredibly proud." Elena smiled, but her eyes scanned the room constantly, looking for threats that might not exist. "I am, but mostly, I'm scared. Being extraordinary can be dangerous." The student looked confused, but Elena didn't explain. How could she explain that her daughter's brilliance had painted a target on her back, that men with guns and bombs were looking for the little girl who'd foiled their plans? As they left the university, Marcus and another bodyguard flanking them, Elena made a decision. That evening, she spoke with Alexander. "We need to disappear," she said bluntly. "The witness protection program, the FBI's offer, whatever it takes to keep Maya safe. Elena, I promised I'd protect you both. And you've done more than we ever dreamed possible. But you can't fight an entire terrorist network. These people, they don't forget. They don't forgive. And they have nothing to lose." Elena's voice cracked. "I won't risk my daughter, Alexander, I won't." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Give me 1 more week. I have an idea, but I need time to arrange it. If it doesn't work, we'll do witness protection. You have my word." "What kind of idea?" "The kind that might end this threat permanently." He leaned forward. "Elena, these men are terrorists. They're already on every watch list, every intelligence agency's radar. But they're still operating because they're careful, hidden. What if we made them expose themselves? What if we used Maya, safely, from a distance, to help identify the rest of their network?" "Absolutely not." Elena stood, her face flushed with anger. "You want to use my 7-year-old daughter as bait? I want to use her unique abilities to help the FBI find these people before they hurt anyone else, before they hurt Maya." Alexander stood too. "Think about it. Maya can identify languages, dialects, accents that trained agents might miss. She could listen to recordings, help translate coded messages. The FBI has surveillance on dozens of suspects but can't crack their communications because they use obscure Arabic dialects and code words. Maya could help with that, safely, from a secure FBI facility. And if something goes wrong, then we've still helped identify terrorists who would have continued operating. But Elena, right now, Maya is a target because they think she's a witness. If we help the FBI arrest the entire network, the threat disappears. She becomes a hero instead of a victim." Elena sank back into her chair, her head in her hands. "I need to think about this, and I need to talk to Maya." "Of course, but Elena, we're running out of time. Zamir Hassan isn't going to wait forever." That night, Elena sat on Maya's bed, stroking her daughter's hair. "Mija, Mr. Blackwood has an idea, but it's dangerous, and I need you to help me decide." She explained the proposal, using Maya's language skills to help the FBI, becoming part of the solution instead of just a witness in hiding. Maya listened quietly, her 7-year-old mind processing implications and risks with frightening clarity. "If I help them, we won't have to hide forever? Maybe. Or maybe it makes things worse. I don't know, baby. That's why I'm asking you." Maya was quiet for a long time. Then, when those men were talking about the bomb, they said something else. Something I didn't tell anyone yet. Elena went still. "What did they say?" "They said there were others. Other attacks being planned. In schools, in hospitals, places where lots of people would die." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Mama, if I can help stop them, don't I have to try, even if it's scary?" Elena pulled her daughter close, her own tears falling into Maya's hair. "You're so brave, Mija. Too brave for 7 years old. I learned it from you, Mama. You're the bravest person I know." The next morning, Elena called Alexander. "Okay, we'll do it your way. But I want guarantees. Complete FBI protection, secure facilities, and the moment I say we're done, we're done. No arguments. You have my word, Alexander promised. I'll set up a meeting with Agent Foster immediately. But in a basement apartment in Brooklyn, Zamir Hassan was making his own plans. He spread photographs across a table, images of Maya entering and leaving the Midtown apartment building, of her visits to Columbia University, of her trips to the library with her bodyguards. She's well protected, one of his men observed in Arabic. Every fortress has a weakness, Zamir replied, and I've found hers. The mother works at Blackwood Tower now. Day shift, facility management. She takes the same route every day, arrives at the same time. If we can't reach the child directly, we'll reach her through her mother. Take Elena Rodriguez, and the child will come to us. When? Soon, very soon. And then Alexander Blackwood will learn that protecting someone only makes them a better target. The pieces were moving into position, the FBI's plan, Zamir's plan. And Maya, brilliant and brave and far too young to be in the center of such dangerous forces, sleeping peacefully while the adults around her prepared for a war she didn't fully understand. The storm was coming, and no amount of security or planning could fully prepare for what would happen when it finally broke. The FBI facility in Lower Manhattan looked like any other office building from the outside, but inside it was a fortress. Agent Diana Foster led Maya, Elena, and Alexander through layers of security, badge scanners, metal detectors, biometric readers, until they reached a conference room deep in the building's interior. This is our Linguistics Analysis Center, Agent Foster explained. When we have communications in foreign languages that our standard translators can't crack, we bring them here. The room contained computers, audio equipment, and several other FBI personnel who looked up curiously as Maya entered. She was the youngest person in the room by decades, a small girl in a pink sweater standing among federal agents and intelligence analysts. This is Maya Rodriguez, Agent Foster announced. She's going to help us with some Arabic translations. Maya, this is Agent Chen, whom you met before, and these are our language specialists, Dr. Amir and Dr. Yamamoto. For the next 3 hours, Maya listened to audio recordings captured from surveillance operations. Conversations in Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, languages she'd never formally studied but could parse through their connections to languages she knew. The FBI specialists watched in astonishment as she identified dialects, translated coded phrases, and caught nuances their professional translators had missed. That phrase there, Maya said, pointing to a waveform on the computer screen. He's not saying, the bird flies at dawn. That's code. In Syrian dialect, when a bird can mean message and dawn can mean beginning. He's saying the message begins. It's about timing something. Agent Chen rewound the recording, listening again. My God, she's right. That completely changes the context of the entire conversation. There's more, Maya continued, her small finger tracing along the timeline. Later he mentions the grandmother's house, but he uses the formal Arabic, not the familiar form you'd use for your actual grandmother. It's a location code, somewhere they've designated as a safe house or meeting point. Dr. Amir, a 15-year veteran of FBI translation services, looked at Agent Foster with wide eyes. In 3 hours, she's identified patterns and codes that took our team 3 weeks to partially decode. How is this possible? Elena, sitting in the corner watching her daughter work, felt a confusing mixture of pride and fear. Maya was doing something important, something that could save lives. But seeing her 7-year-old discussing terrorist operations made Elena's heart ache. Alexander stood beside Elena, his presence a quiet source of support. She's remarkable, he whispered. But are you okay? I know this isn't easy. I'm terrified, Elena admitted. But Maya was right. If she can help stop these people, she should. I just wish she didn't have to. After the session, Agent Foster took them to her private office. Maya's contributions today were invaluable. We've been trying to crack the communications network of Zamir Hassan's cell for months. With her help, we might finally be able to map their entire operation. How much longer will you need her? Elena asked. That depends. We have dozens of hours of recorded conversations. If Maya could analyze them, at her own pace, with breaks, no pressure, we could potentially prevent multiple attacks. But she's safe here, right? Alexander pressed. Zamir knows where Maya lives, where Elena works. If word gets out that Maya is helping the FBI, that's exactly why this stays completely classified, Agent Foster interrupted. Officially, Maya Rodriguez doesn't exist in our system. No records, no documentation, everything she does here is off-book. If Zamir or his associates come looking, there's no trail to follow. Except the actual people who know, Elena said quietly. The agents here, the specialists. People talk. Agent Foster's expression hardened. Everyone in this facility has top-secret clearance and knows the consequences of breaching security. But you're right to be cautious. That's why I'm recommending that for the duration of Maya's assistance, you both move to a safe house, somewhere even more secure than your current apartment. For how long? Maya asked, speaking for the first time since they'd entered the office. However long it takes to dismantle Zamir's network. Could be weeks, could be months. Maya looked at her mother, and Elena saw the 7-year-old child beneath the linguistic prodigy. Mama, I don't want to live in hiding. I don't want to be afraid all the time. I know, Mija. I know. Alexander leaned forward. What if we went on the offensive? Instead of just translating old recordings, what if we set up a situation where Zamir's people revealed themselves? Agent Foster raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting we use Maya as bait. Not physically, but information as bait. Alexander pulled out his phone, showing news articles. Every major outlet has covered the bombing attempt. They know someone warned me, but not who. What if we leak information, false information, about a witness who's cooperating with the FBI? Make Zamir think we have someone else, someone who's not Maya. While his people focus on the decoy, we use Maya's translations to locate and arrest his entire cell. That's incredibly risky, Agent Foster said. If Zamir figures out the decoy is fake, then we make sure the decoy is convincing. Use one of your undercover agents, someone who can sell the story. Alexander's voice was intense. Agent Foster, right now, Maya and Elena are living in constant fear. This could end it, permanently. Elena stood abruptly. No, absolutely not. I won't let you use Maya or anyone else in some dangerous game. Elena, Alexander said gently. Right now, Zamir has the advantage. He knows where you are and he's planning something. We can wait for him to strike, or we can take control of the situation. Mr. Blackwood is right, Agent Foster added. Zamir is planning something. We've intercepted chatter suggesting an operation within the next 2 weeks. We don't know the target, but given his brother's obsession with revenge, it's likely connected to you or Maya. Elena sank back into her chair, her face pale. Maya climbed onto her mother's lap, something she hadn't done in months, and Elena held her like she was 3 years old again, small and safe, and not caught up in terrorism and FBI operations. Agent Foster gave them a moment, then spoke softly. I know this is overwhelming, but Maya has already proven she can help us. With her assistance, we've made more progress in 3 hours than in 3 months of standard analysis. If she continues, if she helps us decode the remaining communications, we can preemptively stop whatever Zamir is planning. We can end this threat. Or make it worse, Elena countered. That's always a risk, Agent Foster acknowledged. But the alternative is waiting for Zamir to act first. And I promise you, Elena, you won't like where that leads. The room fell silent, except for the humming of computers and the distant sound of phones ringing in other offices. Maya felt her mother's heart racing, felt the trembling in her hands. I want to help, Maya said quietly. I want to stop being scared, and if I can stop other people from being hurt like those people in the tower almost were, isn't that worth it? Elena closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. You're 7 years old, Maya. You shouldn't have to make decisions like this, but I can help, and Mama. Maya pulled back to look at her mother. You taught me that when you can help, you should. That's why you work so hard, why you do everything for me. Because you can help our family. This is me helping other families. Alexander felt something crack in his chest. This child, this impossibly brilliant, impossibly brave child, was teaching them all what courage really meant. If we do this, Elena said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, we do it my way. Complete security, regular breaks, and the moment it becomes too much, we stop. I don't care if the operation is finished or not. My daughter's well-being comes first. Agreed, Agent Foster said immediately. Elena, I'm a mother too. I understand your fears. We'll make sure Maya is protected every step of the way. Over the next week, Maya became an unexpected asset to the FBI's counterterrorism unit. She arrived at the facility each morning with Elena and Marcus, worked in a secure room analyzing communications, and returned to their apartment each evening. The routine was almost normal except for the content of her work. Conversations about weapons, plans, and violence that no child should have to hear. But Maya approached it like she approached languages, as patterns to be understood and decoded. She taught herself to separate the emotional content from the linguistic analysis, to focus on the words rather than their terrible meanings. On the 8th day, she made a breakthrough. Agent Foster, Maya called out, her voice urgent. I found something. Agent Foster rushed to Maya's workstation, where she was reviewing a conversation recorded 3 days earlier. Listen to this part, Maya said, playing the audio. Two men speaking in Arabic, discussing what sounded like a business transaction. They're talking about importing fabrics from Damascus. But Damascus hasn't exported fabrics in years because of the war. It's code. Code for what? Maya pulled up her translation notes. Throughout the conversation, they used textile metaphors. Fabrics means people. Damascus is their code for Syria, so Syrian nationals. Importing means bringing into the country. They're talking about smuggling someone into the United States. Agent Foster leaned closer, her expression intense. When? They mentioned the shipment arrives before the grandmother's birthday. I cross-referenced other conversations where they mention birthdays. They're using a calendar code. If we can figure out whose grandmother and when her birthday is, we can determine when and where this person is entering the country, Agent Foster finished. She was already pulling out her phone, calling her team. Maya, this is huge. This could be the operation Zamir is planning. Within hours, the FBI had mobilized. Using Maya's translations and additional surveillance, they identified the grandmother as a code name for a female contact in New Jersey. Her birthday was code for the next new moon, 6 days away. They were running out of time. Alexander arrived at the facility that evening to find Maya asleep on a couch in the break room. Elena sitting beside her with a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. She worked 12 hours straight, Elena said quietly. She wouldn't stop until she'd translated everything that might be relevant. She's incredible, Alexander said, sitting down across from them. Agent Foster says her work today might have prevented a major attack. I know, I'm proud of her. But Alexander, Elena's voice cracked. She's having nightmares, about the bomb, about men with guns. Last night she woke up screaming. This is destroying her, piece by piece. Then we end it. We tell Agent Foster we're done. She won't let us quit. Not now, not when we're so close. And Maya, she'll insist on continuing. She feels responsible. Elena wiped her eyes. How did my baby end up in the middle of a terrorism investigation? She should be learning multiplication and playing with friends. Instead, she's decoding messages from people who want to kill innocents. Alexander had no answer. He'd started this path with good intentions, protecting the child who'd saved his life, giving her opportunities she deserved. But somewhere along the way, the situation had spiraled beyond anyone's control. After this operation is finished, he said firmly, we get her out. No more FBI work. We find her a good therapist, get her back in regular tutoring, let her be a kid for a while. I'll arrange everything. Can you promise that? Can you promise that once she's helped them, they'll let her go? Yes, Alexander lied. Because the truth, that the FBI would likely never stop finding uses for Maya's unique talents, was too terrible to speak aloud. 4 days before the grandmother's birthday, everything went wrong. Elena was leaving Blackwood Tower after her shift when she noticed a car following her. She tried to shake it by changing directions, ducking into stores, but the car maintained distance. When she finally reached the Midtown apartment, panic rising in her throat, she found Marcus waiting outside with a grim expression. They made a move, he said without preamble. Zamir's people approached the building an hour ago, asking questions about you and Maya. Building security held them off, and NYPD has them in custody. But Elena, they know where you live. They know Maya's routine. Oh God. Elena's legs nearly gave out. Where's Maya? Still at the FBI facility with Agent Foster. They're keeping her there until we figure out next steps. Elena's phone rang. Alexander. Elena, I just heard. Are you safe? For now. But Alexander, they know. They know everything. Then we move you tonight. Agent Foster has a safe house ready. You and Maya will be completely secure. For how long? How long do we keep running? Until Zamir's entire network is dismantled. Elena, I'm so sorry. I thought we could control this situation, but you can't control terrorists, Elena finished bitterly. I need to get to Maya. Now. An FBI transport arrived 20 minutes later, whisking Elena to the facility where Maya waited, her small face pale with fear. When she saw her mother, she ran into her arms. Mama, are you okay? Agent Foster said men came to the building. I'm fine, mija. We're both fine. Elena held her daughter tight, breathing in her scent, feeling her heartbeat. But we have to leave. They're taking us somewhere safe. What about my books, my things? Already packed, Agent Foster said, appearing with 2 suitcases. We'll have everything you need at the safe house. Elena, Maya, I know this is frightening, but you'll be protected. Round-the-clock security, location known only to a handful of people. As they prepared to leave, Alexander arrived, looking more disheveled than Maya had ever seen him. His tie was loose, his hair mussed, and there was genuine fear in his eyes. I'm coming with you, he announced. Mr. Blackwood, that's not necessary, Agent Foster started. It's absolutely necessary. These people targeted Maya because of me. If I'm at the safe house, Zamir will have to choose. Go after his primary target or chase the witness. Let me be the bigger target. That's suicide, Agent Foster said flatly. No, it's strategy, and it keeps Maya safer. Alexander knelt down in front of Maya. I made you a promise. I said I'd protect you. I intend to keep it. Maya looked at this billionaire who'd turned her life upside down, who'd given her opportunities beyond imagination, who was now willing to risk his life to protect hers. Mr. Blackwood, she said softly, you already saved me. You gave us a home, a future. You don't owe us anything else. Yes, I do. You saved my life first. Everything I gave you was just leveling the score. He smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Besides, someone needs to make sure you keep up with your language studies. The safe house was a converted warehouse in New Jersey, nondescript from the outside but fortified within. FBI agents manned every entrance. Surveillance cameras covered every angle. It was a prison disguised as protection, but it was the safest place they could be. That night, as Maya lay in an unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar room, she heard voices from the living area. Agent Foster, Alexander, and her mother, discussing the operation planned for the grandmother's birthday. We need Maya's translation skills to coordinate the takedown, Agent Foster was saying. The communications are too complex for our standard translators. Absolutely not, Elena replied firmly. Maya has done enough. You have her translations. Use those. The operation is happening in real time. Things change. We need someone who can interpret on the fly if new communications come in. Then find someone else. There is no one else. Agent Foster's voice rose, then calmed. Elena, I'm sorry, but your daughter is the best linguistic analyst we have, maybe the best in the country. For this operation to succeed, we need her. She's 7 years old. I know, and I hate asking, but if this operation fails, Samir continues planning attacks. The person they're bringing into the country, we believe he's a bomb maker, someone who's built devices that killed dozens of people in Syria. If he gets into the U.S., if we lose track of him. Agent Foster didn't finish, but the implication hung in the air. Maya slipped out of bed and padded to the doorway. 3 adults turned to look at her, her mother exhausted and protective, Agent Foster determined and apologetic, Alexander conflicted and concerned. I'll do it, Maya said. I'll help with the operation. Maya, no, Elena started. Mama, if I don't, people will die. Isn't that what you always taught me? That if we can help, we should? Not when it puts you in danger. I'm already in danger. We're all in danger. The only way to stop being in danger is to stop them. Maya walked to her mother, taking her hand. I'm scared, Mama. I'm really scared. But I'm also the only one who can do this. That makes it my responsibility. Elena pulled Maya close, tears streaming down her face. You're too young to carry this responsibility. I know, but I'm the only one who can. In that moment, Alexander saw something that would haunt him forever. A 7-year-old child accepting a burden no child should carry, making a choice no child should have to make, because the adults around her had failed to protect her from having to make it. Then we do this together, Alexander said. Agent Foster, if Maya participates in this operation, I do too. Whatever you need, resources, personnel, technology, I provide it. And when it's over, Maya and Elena disappear. New identities, new life. Somewhere Zamir and his people can never find them. That's the deal. Agent Foster nodded slowly. Agreed, but Mr. Blackwood? If this operation goes wrong, none of us may survive to worry about new identities. Then we'd better make sure it goes right. 2 days remained until the grandmother's birthday. 2 days to finalize plans, coordinate with multiple law enforcement agencies, and prepare for an operation that could either end the terrorist threat against Maya's family or get them all killed. And somewhere in the darkness, Zamir Hassan watched and waited, his own plans coming to fruition. He didn't know exactly where Maya and Elena were, but he knew about the FBI operation. He had sources, informants, people who whispered secrets for the right price. He knew they were coming for his operative, the bomb maker from Damascus. And he was ready. The final confrontation was inevitable now. All pieces were in motion. And when the grandmother's birthday arrived, only one side would emerge victorious. The morning of the operation dawned cold and gray, freezing rain turning New Jersey roads into skating rinks. Inside the FBI's mobile command center, a nondescript panel van parked 2 blocks from the grandmother's house, Maya sat surrounded by agents, equipment, and the heavy weight of expectations. She wore headphones connected to live surveillance feeds, her small notepad filled with translations and notes. Agent Foster coordinated the tactical team while Agent Chen monitored communications. Alexander stood beside Elena, both of them looking like they might be sick from stress. All teams in position, Agent Foster announced into her radio. Target is expected to arrive at the residence at 0900 hours. Remember, we need him alive. He's our link to the rest of the network. Maya's headphones crackled with a new transmission. Arabic, Syrian dialect, code words she'd learned to recognize. The package is arriving early, Maya translated quickly. 8:30 instead of 9, and there's a change, they're not using the front entrance and service door in the back. Agent Foster immediately relayed the information. All teams, target arriving 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Alpha team, reposition to rear entrance. Beta team, maintain front position. Gamma team, stand by for potential complications. The next 20 minutes crawled by like hours. Maya monitored multiple communication channels, translating fragments of conversation, identifying voices, tracking movements. Her 7-year-old mind processed information with the precision of a trained analyst, but her 7-year-old heart raced with terror. At 8:34 a.m., everything happened at once. A black sedan pulled into the alley behind the grandmother's house. 2 men exited, helping a third man, older, carrying a heavy suitcase, toward the service door. FBI tactical teams moved in from both ends of the alley. FBI, hands where we can see them. And then, chaos. Gunfire erupted from inside the house. Not from the 3 men in the alley, but from additional suspects no one had known were there. Zamir had set a trap, and the FBI had walked right into it. Officers down. We need backup. The radio exploded with urgent voices screaming orders, calls for medical assistance. Get Maya out of here, Alexander shouted at Marcus. Now! But before anyone could move, the van's rear doors flew open. Zamir Hassan stood there with 3 armed men, weapons raised. Nobody moves, Zamir said in English, then switched to Arabic, his eyes fixed on Maya. You, little girl, you're the one who ruined everything. Maya couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This was the man whose brother she'd helped arrest, whose operation she'd been dismantling piece by piece. And he was here, in the van, with a gun. Zamir Hassan, Agent Foster said, her hand moving slowly toward her weapon. You're surrounded. There's no way out of this. No, Agent Foster, you're surrounded. My men have positioned explosives around this entire block. You want everyone here to die? Then make a move. Zamir's smile was cold. Or give me the girl and the billionaire, and maybe I let the rest of you live. Don't do it, Alexander said quietly. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. Won't it? I have everything I need right here. The witness who betrayed us, and the man who thought he could protect her. You know what happens to traitors in my culture, Mr. Blackwood. The punishment extends to entire families. Everyone who helps them. Everyone they love. Elena lunged toward Zamir, but Agent Chen grabbed her. My daughter did nothing to you. She's 7 years old. Old enough to destroy months of planning. Old enough to put my brother in prison. Old enough to die. Then kill me instead, Alexander said, stepping forward. Maya was only trying to save lives. She didn't know what she was getting involved in. But I'm the one who brought her into this, who exposed her to danger. Your revenge should be on me. Zamir considered this. Noble, but insufficient. However, I'm a reasonable man. I'll offer you a choice. He gestured with his gun toward Maya, then Alexander. The girl or the billionaire. You choose who dies, Agent Foster. Make your decision quickly. My patience has limits. The van went silent. Elena's anguished cry was the only sound. Maya's mind raced through options, probabilities, outcomes. She saw the tension in Zamir's trigger finger, the positions of his men, the micro-expressions on Agent Foster's face that suggested a plan forming. And then Maya did something no one expected. She spoke. In perfect Arabic, in the same Syrian dialect Zamir used, she said, Your brother Hassan made you a promise, didn't he? Before he was arrested. He said if anything happened to him, you would make it right. You would complete the mission. Zamir's eyes widened. How do you know? Because I've listened to every conversation your network has had over the past month. I know about the bomb maker from Damascus. He's the man in your alley right now, probably in FBI custody. I know about your financial sources in Qatar. I know about your safe houses, your contacts, your next 3 planned operations. Maya's voice was steady despite her terror. And I know something else. Hassan left a message for you hidden in one of his communications. Agent Foster, play recording 47B, timestamp 347. Agent Foster, catching on to Maya's strategy, quickly pulled up the audio file on her tablet. Hassan's voice filled the van, speaking in Arabic. If you're hearing this, brother, I've failed. But you must not seek revenge. Revenge is what destroyed our father, what scattered our family. Complete the mission I started, yes, but not through violence. Through redemption. Prove we're more than what they think we are. It was a lie. Maya had fabricated the timestamp, chosen a recording where Hassan mentioned his brother in passing. But she'd read the hesitation in Zamir's eyes, the doubt, the exhaustion of a man tired of fighting. Hassan never said that, Zamir said, but his voice wavered. He did. It's in the original Arabic, easy to miss in translation, but I heard it. And I think part of you knew it too. Your brother regretted the violence. He told the FBI interrogators that he wished there had been another way. You're lying. Maybe. Or maybe I'm giving you an excuse to stop, to walk away before more people die, including yourself. For a long moment, Zamir stood frozen, his gun still raised, his expression tortured. Behind him, FBI tactical teams were repositioning, preparing to breach the van. But Maya's words had bought them time, precious seconds where negotiation might still be possible. Zamir, Alexander said softly, your brother made mistakes, but he was still your brother. Would he want you to murder a child in revenge? Is that the legacy you want to leave? The legacy I want, Zamir said bitterly, is a world where our people aren't treated like criminals just for existing, where poverty doesn't force mothers to risk everything for their children, where brilliant minds like this girl's aren't wasted in the shadows. Then help us build that world, Alexander replied. Surrender now. Testify against the rest of your network. In exchange, I'll personally fund educational programs for immigrant families, language services, opportunities for people who've been forgotten by the system. I'll use my billions to create the change you wanted to force through violence. But you have to stop this. Right now. Before it's too late. The rain drummed on the van's roof. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Inside this small space, a terrorist held a gun on a 7-year-old girl while a billionaire offered him redemption. Zamir's hand trembled. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. "I'm tired," he said in Arabic, and Maya heard the exhaustion of generations in his voice. "I'm so tired of being angry." "Then rest," Maya replied in the same language. "Rest, and let us handle it from here." Zamir set his gun on the floor and placed his hands behind his head. His men, seeing their leader surrender, did the same. FBI tactical teams swarmed the van within seconds, securing the weapons, cuffing the suspects. But before they took him away, Zamir looked at Maya one last time. "You could have let me kill the billionaire. Secured your own safety, why save him?" "Because he's my friend," Maya said simply. And friends protect each other. The aftermath took weeks to sort out. Zamir's testimony led to the dismantling of the entire terrorist network. 37 arrests across 4 states. The bomb maker from Damascus was in custody, his devices and plans now evidence in federal court. Multiple planned attacks were prevented. Maya and Elena did receive new identities, but they didn't have to use them. With the network destroyed and Zamir cooperating, the threat against them evaporated. They moved back to the Midtown apartment, but now with the knowledge that they were truly safe. 3 months after the operation, on a Saturday morning when winter was beginning to soften into spring, Maya sat in Dr. Wells's office at MIT, participating in a symposium on language acquisition. But this time, she wasn't alone. 10 other children sat around the table, immigrants, refugees, kids from struggling families, all of whom showed remarkable linguistic abilities. "This is the Rodriguez Blackwood Language Initiative," Dr. Wells explained to the assembled scholars and press. Funded by Alexander Blackwood and inspired by Maya Rodriguez, this program identifies linguistically gifted children from underserved communities and provides them with educational opportunities, tutoring, and support. Alexander stood at the back of the room watching Maya interact with the other children, explaining grammar patterns in 5 languages, helping a shy 9-year-old from Somalia understand English pronunciation. Elena appeared beside him. "She's happy." "She is. But how are you?" "Really?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "I'm still processing everything that happened. The fear, the danger, the impossible choices. But when I see Maya like this, thriving, helping others, using her gifts safely, I think maybe it was worth it. Maybe all of it led here, to this moment." "I still feel guilty," Alexander admitted, "for putting you both through that. You also saved our lives, changed our future. Yes, it was terrifying, but Alexander, before you came into our lives, Maya's gift was just a secret we kept. Something that made her different, isolated. Now, she's part of a community. She's helping other children like herself. That's everything I could have hoped for." On stage, Maya finished her demonstration and looked out at the audience. Her eyes found her mother and Alexander, and she smiled. A real, genuine 7-year-old smile full of joy and possibility. After the symposium, the 3 of them walked through Cambridge, ending up at a small cafe where Maya ordered hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, a simple pleasure she never took for granted. "What's next for you, Maya?" Alexander asked. "More language studies, maybe branch into linguistics research?" Maya considered this while fishing marshmallows out of her cup. "Actually, I've been thinking. Languages are patterns, right? And patterns exist in lots of things. Math has patterns, music has patterns, even code has patterns. You want to learn programming?" Alexander pulled out his phone. "I know several software engineers who, not programming, well, maybe programming, but really." Maya set down her cup, her expression serious. "I want to help people communicate. Not just translating words, but understanding each other. Like with Zamir, he was angry because he felt unheard, unseen. What if we could use language and technology to help people really understand each other? To prevent conflicts before they happen?" Alexander and Elena exchanged glances. Of course, Maya's ambitions would be about helping others. Of course, her extraordinary gifts would be directed toward making the world better. "That's a big goal for 7 years old," Alexander said gently. "I'm almost 8 now," Maya corrected. "And you said I could become whatever I want to be, so I want to be someone who brings people together." "Then that's what we'll help you become," Elena promised. "But Mija, you don't have to save the world. You're allowed to just be a kid sometimes." "I know, Mama, but maybe I can be both. A kid who saves the world, one conversation at a time." 5 years later, Maya Rodriguez stood on a stage at the United Nations, now 12 years old, addressing the General Assembly in 7 different languages. The Rodriguez Blackwood Initiative had grown to serve over 1,000 children across 50 countries. The children she'd taught in that first cohort were now teenagers themselves, many working as translators, diplomats, cultural liaisons. Elena sat in the audience beside Alexander, both of them beaming with pride. Elena now directed the initiative's family support services, using her own experience to help immigrant families navigate systems that had once seemed impossible to understand. Alexander had poured billions into the program, making it his legacy. Not the towers or the businesses, but this investment in human potential. Maya's speech concluded with a simple message. Language divides us until we learn to speak. But understanding, true understanding, requires more than words. It requires empathy, curiosity, and the willingness to listen. 5 years ago, I was a child who saved a life with a whispered warning. Today I'm still just a child, but one who believes that every voice matters, that every story deserves to be heard, that every person, regardless of where they come from or what language they speak, has inherent worth and dignity. This is what I learned not from books or tutors, but from my mother who worked tirelessly so I could dream, and from a stranger who became a friend when he chose to listen to a frightened child's warning. The world doesn't change through grand gestures. It changes through millions of small acts of courage, compassion, and connection. Thank you for listening to mine. The assembly rose in a standing ovation. Delegates from nations that rarely agreed on anything applauded in unison, united for a moment by the words of a 12-year-old girl who spoke their languages and understood their hearts. Backstage, Maya found Elena and Alexander waiting. Elena pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of you, mija. So incredibly proud. Thanks, Mama. But I couldn't have done any of this without you. You taught me everything that matters. And you'll keep teaching others," Alexander added. "Maya, I've been thinking. When you turn 18, I want you to take over the initiative. Full control, full authority. It should be yours." "That's 6 years away," Maya laughed. "A lot can happen in 6 years. Then we'll figure it out together," Alexander replied. "However many languages you learn, whatever path you choose, you've got family supporting you every step of the way." Family. The word settled over them like a blessing. Not the family they'd been born with, but the family they'd chosen. The family forged in crisis and strengthened through trust. As they left the United Nations building, stepping out into the Manhattan evening, a young reporter approached them. "Ms. Rodriguez, can I ask you something? You've accomplished so much at such a young age. What's the secret? How did you become who you are?" Maya thought about it, about a 7-year-old girl listening in hallways, learning languages to help her mother, finding courage in the darkest moment, about the choices that led here, the people who believed in her, the gift that could have destroyed her but instead became her purpose. "The secret," she said finally, "is that I'm not special. I just had people who saw my potential and helped me reach it. Every child has gifts waiting to be discovered. Every child has potential waiting to be unlocked. The secret isn't in being extraordinary. It's in having extraordinary people who believe in you, and working really, really hard not to let them down." She took her mother's hand on one side, Alexander's on the other, and together they walked into the New York night. 3 people whose lives had collided by chance and transformed by choice. The girl who spoke in whispers had found her voice, and the world was listening.